Hey everyone, today for this video I would like to talk about what this channel is about and what I'm gonna do in those next vlogs. So for me, these videos are mainly about talking to myself because it's a really powerful tool to get unstuck in life. So I've heard of this practice in programming where they take like a rubber duck, they like start talking to an entity, they imagine talking to someone else about what the program is doing. And apparently that helps find bugs because when you describe it to someone else, you don't have all the baggage of your assumptions and what you consider obvious. You become much clearer with what you say because you're trying to communicate to someone else. And I think it's a very powerful practice that is very, very easy to replicate in real life. It's not rocket science. We call it journaling or talking out loud or whatever. It's very common, right, to analyze your thoughts so that they can seem more clear. And so this is what these vlogs are about. And the reason why I make them public instead of just keeping it to myself is because I found a lot of value in people talking about that and just talking about life and things they found helpful. I'd say a lot of my, I guess, education, more like, learning about life, not schooling type of education, more like properly learning about life. A lot of it came from YouTube and, just listening to people who are interesting and who are very thoughtful about life and who share their ideas just like that on the internet for free. So this is one reason why I share it on public, but the other things just that it gives me more like it's more like revealing about my ideas when you actually share them in public rather than just keep them for yourselves. You have to be better at articulating again to the idea of the rubber duck, and you also have to I don't know, I think it just makes it more interesting to see what people have to say about it. And so this is certainly not the first vlog I've made. Like I've made mine in the past, but for privacy reasons, I would like to not show my face. So I've deleted all the previous ones. Yeah, but I've made many vlogs. I've even completed like a period of 100 vlogs during 4 months, and I've learned a lot. But what I've noticed is that I tend to say the same things over and over because obviously, journaling is very powerful to your patterns and the many ways in which you make the same mistakes and all that. But it doesn't instantly solve them, of course. It takes a lot of time and effort. And sometimes it's not about incremental changes, right? Sometimes it's just about taking leaps of faith. But sometimes you do need to take incremental changes and to just move slowly and gradually. And I found myself that when I made those 100 vlogs in those 4 months, basically made a lot of them daily. I was just repeating myself a lot, so this time I would like to not repeat that, but definitely a great learning experience to also improve my speaking abilities, which, believe it or not, they were actually worse back than now. And I would say that mine are not that amazing right now, but yeah, it is what it is. So the channel will be used to explore ideas in my life that I find interesting and helpful, that have helped me and I think will help others. And also just to, get unstuck. So just talking about my problems and what I think is going on, my best understanding of it, so on. So there will be a lot of personal stuff. Some of it would be more like just exploring ideas about society, why society is a certain way. Because ultimately, every individual, if they wish to understand themselves, they also need to understand the society they live in. Because, of course, you're not born in a vacuum. You're born within a very specific cultural setting that imprints many societal beliefs into you. That doesn't mean they're all bad, but when you unconsciously believe all of them, then you can start living a life that is not your own. My main mission with these vlogs and my life really is to really be authentic to myself. It might sound very cheesy and it might not even sound like a goal, right? Because what does it even mean to be yourself? But I've I found that simply increases your quality of life to just be honest with yourself and to just act from that, core of what you know is right. I don't believe is even morality, you know. I don't even believe that's morality that is programmed onto you. I think there's genuinely something that we could call the higher self, that you just know what you want. But sometimes you're just afraid to go forward to that direction. And what I would like in my life is mainly to be able to be with my higher self more often than not, you know, be my authentic self, you know, just not act out of pettiness or survival reasons or wanting to put others down, out of fear, out of trauma, or all that, you know. And so, yeah, that's my main direction in life is to really be authentic to myself because there's a lot of mechanisms that make it so that we can't be honest with ourselves. For example, one of which I just mentioned is it's trauma, it's emotional trauma. It's very, very it's ubiquitous throughout society if you actually learn to see it. When we hear the word trauma, we don't really think of something that is, you know, widespread or common or could happen to quote unquote regular people, but trauma is actually very, very common. It's very misleading to think of it as something that only happens to people who live through very difficult childhood, you know, where they get abused and whether it is physically or sexually, you know, those people are definitely traumatized, right? I'm not going to say they're not traumatized, but what I mean to say is that trauma is far more extensive than that. Trauma is a very, very common thing. It's simply an overwhelming sensation, emotion that hasn't been able to process and that kind of sticks with you, you know, like fear that was so overwhelming that you were never able to express, and as a result, you develop strategies to survive, basically. Trauma is a survival response to overwhelm. And it can take very, very weird forms in the modern world, right? Like when when we think of fear, the responses in the primitive world, we usually think of like fight and flight, right? Like fight the animal or you run away from it. And in the modern world, those strategies still exist because we are not that biologically different. They take very different forms. Like you take the flight response. The flight response is about running away from your problems, basically, you know. So you have things such as procrastination, of course, but you also have things such as, weirdly enough, working yourself. Like overworking yourself can be a form of flight because you're running away from emotional problems this time rather than, you know, work problems. Flight could be distraction, entertainment, you know, switching to tabs incredibly quickly, trying to hold as many tabs as possible and bookmarks. You always have something to do, you know, like this whole thing about productivity and business. It doesn't necessarily come from trauma, but of course, right? Sometimes you just enjoy things. But it can absolutely be the result of trauma, the whole business, the whole cycle of getting yourself busy. And trauma is it's a very complex issue. Maybe I maybe I did a poor job at explaining it, but the reason why I talk about trauma is because obviously, like most people, I never knew about trauma in my life. It's a very I claim that it's ubiquitous, so it's everywhere, but very few people are aware of their body and their emotions and how those control their lives and where the discomfort starts from. So I would claim that it's trauma. But the reason why I found out about trauma was because I wanted to address my addiction with pornography. So that's really when it started, when the whole journey of understanding myself started. Is I wanted to stop watching pornography. And what I realized is that that approach is completely, it doesn't address the right problem. Because pornography as I found, was simply a coping mechanism in my life. It was never the root of my problems. The root of my problems are always rooted in trauma and how I reacted to things as a result, as well as the many, many beliefs around what life should be that I held. Those two things seem to be the biggest bottlenecks in my life, so to speak. Trauma for the emotions and the societal programming for the mind. And in the journey of becoming more authentic, those two were huge, huge. No, they still are huge obstacles. I expect that I will be fighting with them, for the next decades. And perhaps even thinking about the term fighting it perhaps wrong, because it's, in a sense, trauma is the reason why we're all alive. Um, it's, well, not exactly trauma, but what causes trauma, the survival mechanisms that give rise to trauma, they are probably why we are alive. But of course, trauma is the unhealthy expression of that survival mechanism. And when it comes to societal beliefs, as I've said, societal programming, of course, not everything that you learn through society is bad. I think that should be obvious. There's many, many good things that you get from society, but if you just unconsciously agree to all of them, and well, it's not really an agreement at that point. But when you're born into a culture and you just don't know anything better, that can be a huge source of misery that you live through because you didn't know a bit any better. It's very powerful to know possibilities, to know what's possible in life, to know what's to know what other people have done to change their life and all that. Because when you don't know any better, you just take things for granted, and it's can be very dangerous. So yeah, I've been rather vague about my missions, but right now my goals in life the first one is to feel better in my body because I feel a lot of discomfort and tension throughout my day. It's not always the case, but sometimes it's particularly like noticeable. Tension in my belly, especially when I get stressed, I get I feel it in my belly pretty much exclusively, or sometimes through headaches. And the second one is that I would like to be better at time management and project management, such that I can spend more time drawing because I really enjoy drawing. I have an Instagram account where I used to post things, but now that I've kind of exhausted all my drawings, there's not much to post for now. But yeah, I enjoy drawing. So yeah, I think that gave a pretty good overview of what I talk about. I my focus is always on understanding myself. At the end of the day, I do not wish to change anything but myself. I will talk a lot about society, or maybe not, but I will certainly talk about it at least a bit. The point of that is never to try to change society through some kind of revolution. I think that's very misguided, and I understand the intentions, but I think it simply doesn't work in practice. Societal change through that sense. What I know is that I can take individual actions in my life. That's always a possibility. Not just a possibility; it's a reality. If I really set my mind properly to it and do the work. So yeah, that's sort of my orientation in life is to just really be, is just have a really healthy relationship with myself and to stop trying to control things that I can't control, which is, there's very little I found that I can actually control in my life besides myself. And even that is, questionable sometimes. Even parts of myself feel out of control sometimes because I'm so underdeveloped in many ways that I can't control my trauma, for example. I can only control my reaction to it. And even then, sometimes it's difficult to control your reaction, right? I guess controlling reaction is not the right word. It's more like orient and guide your reaction, right? Like in a more gentle manner. As control is very harsh. It sounds very harsh. So yeah. So yeah, thank you for watching this and well, listening, I guess, because there's no longer any video components to my vlogs. Yeah, thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.